question is, did General Moore and I know each other before this battle, or did we meet on that battlefield? Yes, we knew each other before, but not long before. He ran an operation, his battalion, to the east of Play Me Special Forces Camp, I think 3 days before going into Landing Zone X-ray. And I hooked up with the battalion and made that one day, one night operation. And Tony will remember that very well. Maybe Joe too. We went into, I remember a long hot walk in the sun up in the mountains, and we went into a very remote and isolated Montagnard village where the folks lived in the longhouses on stilts. And as we came in there, I saw a wizened little old man come out onto the porch or the front portico of the longhouse, buttoning an old French army tunic and waving a little tricolor French flag. He thought the friends of his youth had come back. And we did a med cap there, treated some wounds. I also recall that somewhere in one of the preps, an Army helicopter had fired one of those rockets, 275 rockets, and had terribly wounded a Montagnard child. And the father came to the medics with this baby, and it was determined that the kid had to be evacuated to a hospital. And they were back and forth on the radio, and they said, well, you got to bring him down to Pleiku to a civilian hospital. The Army can't take care of this kid. I thought, well, if you did it, you ought to take care of it, but that was not the way it worked. So it was determined that they would medevac this child. The father had to go with it on the helicopter. These are very remote people, very primitive people whose primary support, besides sort of scratch and burn agriculture, and was a crossbow, and they hunted with crossbows. And so all of this scurrying around, getting the father ready to take this baby on an Army helicopter. And they came out. He had it looked like a quarter of an animal of some kind, a chunk of meat about yay big, and that was going to be his rations. And the babies, I assume, because in a South Vietnamese hospital, civilian hospital in those days, the family had to come and they had to bring their own food, because otherwise you didn't get fed and nobody took care of you. And it was such a leap from the 17th century or maybe the 16th century for this people. And I just remember that father holding that baby tight, sitting in that helicopter, quivering with terror as it lifted off. And I'm sure he was wondering whether he was ever going to get back to his village, and I don't know the answer to that. But we marched together on that operation. I spent the night out with the battalion, and it stood me in good stead, because 3 days later when the fight started and I wanted to get in there, I couldn't. And there were 5 or 6 other reporters, photographers, in the fire support base at LZ Falcon, I believe. And included was my nemesis, Peter Arnett of the Associated Press. And I had an edge. I had marched with the battalion, and I spotted and recognized Hal Moore's S3, his operations officer, Matt Dillon, and I grabbed him and I said, Matt, I need to get in there. he said, Joe, he said, I'm going in as soon as it's dark with a couple of helicopters full of ammo and water, but I can't take you without Colonel Moore says so. And I said, well, get him on the radio. And I followed him. We went into a little GP medium tent, which was the battalion rear. And he got on the radio, and in the middle of the fight, he's talking to the colonel, and he's telling him, I'm coming in, here's who's coming, here's what I'm bringing. And he said, oh, by the way, that reporter Galloway wants to come in too. And Hal Moore, God bless him, said, if he's crazy enough to want to come in here and you got room, bring him along. Good call, Colonel.